thing to decrease the wind. This is the first time using this particular device. Start off with that. Can you hear me, Doug? I'm using the little microphone, so I need to see if you can hear it. Is it clear, or are you getting a lot of noise from like fans and stuff like that? Okay, but now if I go over here, is it clearer than if I was over here and didn't have a mic? Okay, cool. I was worried about that. All right, so I'm gonna throw this in the forge. I should have already had it in the forge, but it is what it is. I'm starting a little late. So we are going to be forging an integral bolster, hidden tang today, out of the other side of this chunk of Damascus. So this was crushed C's. I don't think you're going to be able to see the pattern on here, but it goes like this. It goes like a whole bunch of little half moons on here. What's up, Steve? So it was a crushed C's. I split it, so there's actually, there you go. There's actually C's here, and I took the other C's from the other side. So I split this. I'm gonna forge it into an integral bolster knife. So first things first, we gotta go through. I'm gonna kind of tilt this fan a different direction. That way it's not hitting the mic as much. But we've got to isolate material as we do this. I'm gonna be using the guillotine tool. I actually am using these little slightly angled guillotine tool to crunch down that area that's going to be the tang. So we'll use that to be able to section out what's going to be the tang. I want to go ahead and get a tang at least semi-forged so that I have something easier to hold it by. And then I'll go ahead and start crushing down the blade. You think I should round that edge? Where's that piece at? I'll tell you right now, the one that we have in the forge is completely already done. So everything's already rounded. Thank you, RH. You know, it takes a lot of work to have a nice man bun like this, bruh. Okay, so just so you can see, all the edges on this are rounded. No, I don't want to round the edge on the guillotine tool. But I get it. I get it. I get it. It is already, it's not super sharp. Like it's not super sharp. If you look right here, it's already beveled back a little bit and all that. It's not like a crisp looking thing, but it's gonna deform by default because these are okay steel. It's nothing like super special or anything like that. But yeah, I made sure, and because I'm the one that, those were just a square off end. They were just squared, and I actually put the bevel on them for this. So the setup for this live stream took a little bit. I had to do that. I had to cut down that huge bar of Damascus. I had to cut that down and then get it all cleaned up, prepped. I had to get propane because it's going to take a little bit of propane. Make sure everything's good in there. So this is going to take a little bit to heat up. I can show you what my goal is here. I'm going to use the little handy dandy dry erase board. All right, so whenever we're going through and we're doing what we're about to work on, this is not an easy process, but it's going to be worth it in the end. And what's this shop about? I make knives and do blacksmithing projects, power hammer, hammers, tongs, anvils, forge, all that stuff. And then y'all are actually inside my shop where I do leather work and my other stuff. I actually was able to do a little bit more work to the other shop. Let's actually show y'all this. Flip you around. So this is the shop y'all are in right now. I got my magnets up on the wall so I can have some of the other projects that I'm working on. Plus I have more over there on that wall. Of course, the refrigerator, my other workbench. Still got plenty of work to do to that side of the shop. Let's get y'all back tightened up real quick. I know this is probably a little disorienting, but you'll be fine here in a minute. There we go. And it's been a process, you know, getting that shop exactly how I want it. I used to use that shop as the main shop, and then I stopped for about 2 years. This is the main shop. So the goal here, right now, we have a block of steel like that. We need to neck down a few different spots. So right now, I need to create a tang. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use this guillotine tool, a tool that's on the top of this anvil right here, and it's got 2 pieces of steel that have teeth on them like this. So what that's going to do is that's going to come up in here, and that's going to create a little wedge here and a little wedge there. Like this. And then that piece right there is going to be our tang. So we're going to end up stretching this out into a tang, and then we got to go through and start forging this section down into a blade. So this section is going to stay about its thickness. I'll bring it down a little bit, but what this creates is an integral bolster knife. So if you're looking at a knife where the actual, I'll show y'all on this over here. So this is a little bit smaller. It's not smaller. This is a very big knife. But this thickness right here is going to stay that thick, and then I'm going to end up grinding away. So there will be a step down into this little area there. Now, of course, the piece of steel we're using right now is quite a bit thicker than this. To give you an idea, that much thicker. Okay, so we're gonna have a good size integral bolster. It's gonna look really cool. This is a big chunk of Damascus, so it's gonna look really unique. You're gonna see all those layers just transition down into the blade from that bolster area, but we've gotta isolate material. We gotta move some things around. We gotta do this process right so that we don't screw anything up. I'm gonna be using 2 different anvils. I'm gonna be using my Nielsen knives and Texas Farrier Supply anvil, plus my old school 100-year-old Trenton Ajax anvil. to do the process for isolating. I've got this anvil set up for hammer forging integral bolsters. A lot of people who do integral bolsters do them with presses and stuff like that. I'm doing this with my arm power and hammers. I'm not using the power hammer or a press to do all of this. It's going to be all forging. We're going to check out this piece of steel and see where we're at. Okay, so the steel is already getting nice and hot, so we've only got about a minute before I can start pulling it out and forging. Whenever you're working with Damascus, you do not want to forge it cold if you don't have to. You end up screwing up a bunch of crap whenever you're doing that. Something to think about whenever you're forging Damascus is creating cold shuts, delaminations, things like that. If you're forging it hot, if you happen to accidentally screw something up a little bit, it'll want to forge weld itself back and you won't screw it up. So just whenever you're going through and you're manipulating the hell out of it, forge it hot. As soon as it starts cooling down, put it back in the forge so you don't screw it up, because the last thing you want to do is screw up a huge chunk of Damascus. You know what I mean? From Alaska. That's pretty cool. What's the weather like in Alaska right now? Did you get the big billet? Did I get the big billet? Y'all want to see a big billet of Damascus? That right there, this is a big billet of Damascus. So let's grab, here, I'm going to grab one of my cool knives that I got from the show. Or I'll grab my first ever, ooh. Is that one mine? Mm-hmm. Wife brought me wraps. Woo. So, let's see here. So I am forging a sword with this piece of Damascus. It's in this well-wrapped package. So, by the way, this is the first knife I ever forged. Did that a while back out of a wrench. I say a while back, that was years and years ago. Still have it. So this was made by Steve Jennings from the comment section right there. This is a collaboration piece right here. This is a bar of Damascus, a big bar of Damascus that I'm gonna forge a sword out of. You see the pattern in there? You can see the twists that go through here. That's all the layers in that twist pattern right there. But you can see these layers coming through here. That is a huge bar of Damascus that's going to be for a sword collaboration with myself and Steve. Okay, so this is going to be hot enough. I'm going to go ahead and zoom y'all into the guillotine tool just a little bit there. All right, guillotine tool. It's got jaws that open up, come down. I'm going to be using a big, wide-faced hammer on this so it doesn't screw up the top die that much. That's going to be plenty of steel right there. Okay, I did that initial notch around there just so that I don't have to re-find it every single time. But that's going to be plenty of steel to make a tang out of. Think about if you took that and sectioned it into a whole bunch of squares. You're gonna have a lot of material inside that tang. And if for some reason I don't feel like it's enough, I can always weld a little bit onto it. So, zoom me back out because we gotta wait for that to heat back up in the forge. And again, as soon as it starts cooling down, just put it back in the forge, because if not, you're gonna take and you're gonna screw your die up for one, because it'll start deforming the section that is doing the work if you're hitting it against that colder steel. Now, some people, their dies are set up to where they have a 45-degree angle on there. You know, you'll have it set up like that. I really didn't want it. I didn't want it to dig in that much. I'll forge the rest of it by hand. Hello back at you. And thank you, Terry. I really want to make a copper mallet for engaging. That would be really cool. Also, so copper, brass, or lead even. I have, for whenever I'm working with certain things, I've got this. This is a brass hammer. Allowed to some. Well, I appreciate that. All right, we should be hot enough to go ahead and do another step down here. Get back into that little notch that we made. We're not in a race here. We're not trying to do anything super crazy fast, but you can see how we're bringing that down. Now, once I have the tang brought down, I will go ahead and decrease that bolster size just a little bit because I don't need it to be that big. But we don't need to go too crazy because I'm going to end up stock removing some of that to clean it up. How's the fam? Always awesome. Is there a way to make a small forge? I mean, okay, so the forge that I'm using right here is actually a small forge. It is half the size of the forge that's underneath it. If you go on to my, probably have a short on here, plus I have a TikTok about making this thing, but it's only 9 inches long by what, 15 inches tall. So it's just the size of the fire brick. So it's about 15 inches tall and 9 inches long and 9 inches wide. So 9 by 9 by 15. It's not a big forge. Now, of course, if you don't have the burner coming out of the side and you have it coming out of the top, it also makes the footprint smaller. I prefer the burner coming from the side because it creates a vortex on the inside of the forge, and it makes it to where at no point is the flame from that burner just blasting the steel. So I don't end up with the crazy hot spot on the steel. I can just toss the steel into the forge and it's gonna bring up the temp real easily. So I like the side burner. But yeah, this is a burner off of Amazon. It came with the hose and the 30 PSI regulator. I just built the forge out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fire bricks, angle iron, and a little hinge for a door. Super simple, nothing too crazy there. The one that it's on top of is 16 inches long. No, it's 18 inches. 18 inches long. So it's a little bit longer. It's double the size of the one that's on top of, or that it's underneath. Okay, let's go ahead, bring this back out, and hit it some more. I'll zoom y'all in on the next one here, but y'all can see me actually hit it. Just like that, just upsetting that side. Again, we're working with a piece of Damascus. This is half of some crushed C's, is what we call them, crushed C's. So it's gonna be interesting to see what this pattern looks like on the blade. Now, my goal is to whenever I forge it, for the crushed C's to go to where the C actually goes down like this. It's just a hump. I don't want the C's on one side or the other. I want the top of the bend of that C to be on the spine and have it come down. Just want to see what it looks like whenever I go through and I grind away that steel. So that's what I'm going to be paying attention to whenever I start forging in the blade direction, is where the orientation of that crushed C is. Die, record breaking stream. Okay, it's only gonna take about another 30 seconds for this to heat back up for us to go ahead and forge it. It is definitely gonna be a hot one. I think the heat index today is like 100 outside, between 95 and 100. So it's probably gonna be about 110, 115 degrees in here. Re-grab how I hold this. Yeah, you can see the pattern in it now. All the layers. You said who peaked that? The other day, Jay had a Wi-Fi die. Wow, that does suck. Holy crap. Then I'm making blacksmithing my workout routine. Yeah, I'll tell you this. It definitely works as a workout routine. What are you doing? But the thing is, if I was ambidextrous with my forging, it would be awesome, because while I'm forging, this arm right here will gain about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of diameter over that arm. Because it gets all the pump from the swinging. This one just holds tongs. Now, of course, it does get you on this whole section right here. So like that particular muscle set up right there does its job, where you don't get as much of that on this one. You just get like this muscle here and then your arm. Versus this one, you work out different muscles holding the tongs as you're doing that. Especially for the huts. But yeah, it's one arm gets a way bigger pump than the other one. We just keep going with it. It's a lot of work to bring down a section of steel like that, but by compressing it this way and doing this, I'm gonna cool this die off actually. Whew, no I'm not. Yeah, I'm gonna have to clean up that so I can even take that die out. It's pinched in there. So whenever you're doing this, it's good to actually pull that down. Yes, I'm isolating the material for the tang of an integral knife. So basically, this section right here, I'm isolating this step down so that I can forge out a tang. And then what I'll do is I will compress the section down that's going to be the bolster, compress that down a little bit, and then I'll take and forge in the section that's going to decide where the blade is in relation to the actual bolster. So we'll decide what that point's going to be. I'm going to get a paper towel because I am already sweating like a son of a gun here. Again, this is a great exercise. You do burn through a lot of sweat when you're doing this, but I will tell you this, it's worth it. You have a whole lot of fun doing it. Trying to make sure I stay square as I do this. Because you don't want it to get too far off. Now, of course, I'll be able to center everything as I go. But let's say you wanted to make little things for like a chest set or something like that. You could use guillotine tools, things like this, to be able to upset the necks of different pieces of steel. So like if I wanted to turn this into a chest piece or something like that, I could use those dies to compress and create all my little setup that I want to be able to like make a Damascus piece into a chest set or something like that. Use a 5/8 leaf spring for dies. I might actually do that. Eric, Chubb, that anvil. Yeah, it is a great anvil. And the guillotine tool is amazing to work with sections like this. And then you also have other tools. So like this tool right here. This tool lets you do things like finger choils. Like I could put this in here, put the steel underneath here, forge down and create a finger choil in a knife or something like that. So you have a whole bunch of different blacksmithing tools, cut-off tools, and different things like that that you can use. I like this particular anvil because with that tool that you saw right there, because this has an actual set screw in the side of it, you can raise and lower that tool to wherever you need it to be to actually work with the material however you want to work it. Most of them, they just sit in the hardy hole however they sit. But for that, I can set it at a certain height and I can really fine tune what I'm going to work with. Okay. Now you can see how much we've brought it down just at this point. So now what I'm going to do before I use this tool again is I'm going to bring that piece over here to this anvil and I'm going to go ahead and forge down that tang a little bit and compress it. So let's go ahead. I'm going to use, here I'll use the 2 Basterds dog head hammer first. So this is a dog head hammer. I don't know if y'all have ever seen this. See how the head's slightly off here? What's up, PB Blacksmithing? How you doing? What's up, David? So dog head hammer, this is brought off to the side. I like it because it's got a square face for what we're about to do. We want to be able to get up to the edge of the anvil and have a nice square edge onto the side of the anvil to do this. I really like my 2 Basterds rounding hammer, but because it's more octagonal right there, hexagonal, you know, it's a ugon, and so you only have a little bit of flat side on there. I will use this for a lot of stuff. Plus, I'll use the fat pins for the integral sections. But for right now, I want to just step this down just a hair. I'm just bringing that down. I heat it back up, do that again. Now the whole point behind this is I'm thinning out and tapering that back section so that whenever I hit it with the guillotine tool on the next go around, it's not having to upset that huge chunk of steel behind it. It'll have a nice thin area, so it'll step down really fast because it's not trying to compress this big square on the back side. It'll be a narrow square. So whenever I get it back out, I'm gonna forge it down about another 1/4 of an inch, and then we'll go ahead and use the guillotine tool and compress it down. Okay. The nice thing is, because we're getting a good amount of heat in here, it's going to be easy to get it hot again. I'm not worried about it moving it around, just trying to compress. And you can see I'm not hitting all the way up next to the actual step down. I'm hitting all the way back here where that little section right there is and up. Pair. So these right here are from Vevor. They sponsored a video a while back and sent me a few pairs of these. This is probably the only pair that I actually use. I say that, I use these for forging whenever I'm going through and I am working on my stake flippers and I need to sharpen it. I put the round section in this right here and I spin it and I just use this to hold that. It works out real well. Gotta wipe the sweat off of my brow. Start forging again. Bringing that down. You see, that's a lot of material for a tank. But yeah, these are probably the only tongs I would get from Vevor. Those wolf jaws are not that good. Yeah, looking like a hardy tool. Yeah, that is if you do neck it down, you can do that. But you see, I'm doing a, like how you would do a hardy tool a lot of the times. You upset the steel, get it to where it's neck down, and then you put it in your hardy hole and you forge around it, flare it out to upset it some more. I'm just doing the reverse of the upsetting. But it is a whole bunch of material movement in that process. Y'all see me bounce off camera, it's because I'm eating one of these incredible wraps that my wife made for me. It's like a buffalo chicken salad. I'm pretty sure she put croutons in it. It's good. I am lucky to have a wife like that. See, what'll happen is I'm gonna get to a point to where with this tang, I'm going to flatten it more one direction and not have it be perfectly square. The whole point behind that is, and I'm barely gonna do it, that'll give me my orientation for how I want the blade to stand up. I'm gonna flatten the tang so that I know what's upright, I guess you could say. It'll make it real easy on me. Just how this tang right here is taller than it is wide. Same thing, I'll know that this is vertical. UK, how long have I been forging for? I've been forging for, I guess, 4.5, 5 years. 115, oh, jeez. Yeah, 115 is hot. Like it's 115 in my shop, but that's with the legit heater blowing in here. And I've got the air circulating. I've got my shop that y'all are in, that door open, the fan pulling air from over there, pushing out here. Then I've got fans up there that are pushing the air out this way to help circulate that. If I don't do that, it gets so hot in here that it's ridiculous. What's up? Gotta help? Okay. Okay. You do your thing. It's forgot to mention there's leftover crouton bits in there. No, I felt that. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. Woo! Whatever you do, don't sit there and just drink soda while you're in your shop working. I already had that soda open. That's why I'm drinking it. I've got water too that I'm gonna be drinking. Okay, so now we're gonna go back and we're gonna use the guillotine tool just a little bit more. Set it, set it, set it, set it. And then we're gonna go ahead and fine tune the tang. And then we can start working on the blade. So a lot of people have to understand that the amount of work that goes into a knife like this is really crazy. I mean, it's a lot of work because you have to do all of this, prep to get it where it needs to go. If you don't do that, it messes with your process. 92 outside, heck yeah. So the big thing is, again, whenever you are doing this, it just takes a lot of work, but as long as you commit to it, it'll be fine. So I was able to take that all the way down to there, because I don't have all that meat behind it. I'm making an integral bolster Damascus knife. This is forged out of a big chunk of crushed C's. Big old chunk of crushed C's. That is what it started off as. Half of that bar. What temperature does this forge get? So this particular forge get up to 2,000 degrees, maybe more. It'll get up to forge welding temperatures. And the bottom forge can get up to about 2,200. That one. Of course, I only need it to go hot enough to build a forge weld. Doesn't need to be anything insane. See that we'll start flattening it out, turning it into a tang. I'll tell you this, there's enough steel in this tang right now that I can make a small EDC out of it. Like, there's as much steel in that tang as this whole knife. So this whole knife that you see right here, there's that much steel in that tang. I can make this whole cut off right now and forge it into this. So whenever people think about hidden tangs and stuff like that, they think, well, it's gonna be a weak point or something like that. No, you gotta imagine this. All of your folders, they have no tangs. They're held together by pins. So if you can abuse the heck out of a folder, you'll never be able to hurt this knife. I'm gonna go ahead on the next step. Let's pull y'all back into frame. Hello. On this next step, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna clean up the tang, and then I'm gonna stop working on it. We're gonna start working on the blade section. We've got to compress the section that's gonna be the bolster. Make sure, yeah. Compress the section that's gonna be the bolster, and then we'll make the blade. Well, it's awesome having y'all here. I'm happy that y'all are enjoying watching. Whew. This is what I love about my channel, is being able to do this stuff right here and it not be behind a paywall. You know, there's a lot of channels out there that save all of their content, the education content, for behind a paywall, and I don't do that. I want to do all of these educational parts to be able to benefit everybody. And have y'all be able to ask questions and do that stuff. All right. Clean up the tang. Yoink, get back up here. So what I was just doing right there was I was just offsetting the tang, making sure that it was in the right spot, that it's centered. Okay, I'm actually going to just leave it where it's at right now because I can adjust that later in the process, but let's go ahead and show y'all this. There's our tang. It is off-centered just a hair. I'm not worried about this direction. I'm more worried about side to side because this is going to be the sides of the bolster. His biceps are flexing into shape. I love that. So there's our tang. Plenty of steel for the size of knife. You want the tang to be about three quarters of the length of your handle. So we took a big old chunk like this, stepped it down into our tang. So now we could grab it by the tang, put it in the forge, start working on our blade. And luckily, because we've been developing that heat in the blade, or the piece of steel this whole time, we don't have to wait for that huge chunk of steel to really heat up. Whew. So that's going to make it a little bit easier on us to get into that step of this. Oh. But yes, integral bolster knife. So when does the hidden tang handle shipping class? I've actually got plenty of videos on how to do hidden tang knives and that whole process on both integral bolsters and hidden tangs that have guards. So I've got videos on how to profile them, shape them, like specifically on the handle section of those knives. The cool thing about my channel is I've got tons of videos based on the different parts of the knife making. You know, doing the profiling, figuring out profiles, doing the heat treating, the shaping, the grinding, literally integral bolsters, guards, full tang knives, handle shaping, what materials I use and why, all of that, all on the channel. I've got like 600 something videos that over the last almost 7 years. So when you're talking about content, I definitely have a lot of that to teach y'all how to do those things. But I do plan on doing a live stream a couple of times on the handle shaping process. Water. I was telling them I also drinking water, not just soda. Stay hydrated if you're going to be doing this type of stuff. Got to get some good heat inside that area that's going to be the bolster and blade. What I'm going to start off with is I'm going to compress the steel down to, like right now, it's about a 1 inch by 1 inch square. I need to bring it down to about, I'd say about 1/2 inch by 5/8 of an inch is the goal for the bolster. So about 1/2 inch wide, maybe a little bit bigger than that. Like this right here, integral bolster. It needs to be a little bit bigger than that. Because I'm going to be grinding this stuff away. I'm not going to be leaving the forge process on this because you want to see all that Damascus. If I left the forging process on there, you wouldn't get to see all of that. You see we're just starting to upset it right there. You see how it flares out to the front? We're probably going to neck it down about another 1/8 of an inch on the sides. Well, really about that all the way around. I don't need to bring this down too much because again, I'm going to be grinding material away. I'm not a big fan of grinding a whole bunch of material, so I'm going to get it as close to that process as possible, and then I'll go through and grind it. It's a real product for my next gamer tag. Oh yeah. That's actually not a bad gamer tag. A little over a decade. Heck yeah. Metalworking, auto body. I've done it all. I really enjoy auto body and working on cars. Y'all really aren't interested in the whole me working on car stuff, so I don't really show that. But like yesterday, I changed I took like the whole front end of my BMW off and replaced the fan, the oil coolers, the whole fan shroud, serpentine belt, pulleys, Fixed a couple of things with my turbo setup, all of that. I did all that yesterday. I've got a whole set of wheels that are going back on the car, huge wheels. I say huge, they're wide. They're big too, they're 20s, but I've got a 600 horsepower twin turbo BMW 535 Xi, little wagon. And then I also have a Porsche Cayman. Okay, I'm cool with the size of that at the bottom there. The front's gonna come down as I forge in the step down into the integral blade. So me talking about my cars is not a flex. I have bought and sold a shit ton of cars in order to be able to buy those. But I buy a car, work on it, have it for about a year, 2 years, and then I'll flip it and sell it for more than I purchased it for and invested into it because I did the right type of things to it. And I'll take the profit from that plus the amount that I paid for the car, go to the next 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 car, to where I was able to buy the cars that I have now and pay cash for them. Whew. Commentary with a banger short. Yeah. Business since '87. Heck yeah. So if you've been doing auto body work, you know this hammer. Had this hammer for 26 years. It's been rehandled since then. But I use this to planish at the end of it. So this is my planishing hammer. This was back whenever you still did auto body work, when you still actually fixed the steel and put as least amount of Bondo on it as possible, or you didn't reskin the car, you just body worked it. Smoothed everything back out, you know, using a torch to shrink steel. All that stuff, man. Like there's, whew. Mark Holder, I'm happy to see you. It have to be happy to see you. The paintless dent repair. So I've been messing with that too. Been practicing that. I like the whole paintless dent repair process. Fascinates me. Okay, I'm gonna switch anvils. I'm gonna move this bigger one forward and move this one out of the way a little bit because we need to start working on our integral bolster. So we're going to take the guillotine tool off of this. We're here. First of all, get that out the way. So I'm going to be working primarily on this section right here. It is rounded. Move these over. So the radius of my hammer, right there, that right there is the same radius as the edge of my anvil right here. So basically, I shouldn't say the whole thing, about half the radius of here is the same radius as the edge of the anvil. So whenever I'm forging the blade and doing that step down, I'm compressing it the same profile on both sides. If you want to do integral bolsters this way, it's a lot more work, but it's cool because you're actually doing the forging process and not using a machine to do it. So it's a cool skill to have. You know what I mean? Hoo-wee. And I got my family's out there, over there in the pool. That's what I want to be doing. So my daughter and them, they're in the pool. That's as soon as I get done with the live stream, I'm jumping in the pool. All right. So now let's start working on this. Big swings. So your goal is to forge both sides and neck that down. So you gotta forge from both sides as you go. You're gonna keep this section big. We're gonna compress that, stretch it out. Whew. So as you do this part, like I said, go from both directions so that you don't kick the blade off to one direction. You need to evenly create that dip in there. If you don't, it won't look right, and you'll cause yourself to have to do more work later. I don't understand how you feel. Does it feel good in here, Arlen? Oh, you're just in front of the fan? My daughter's watching me do this. What are y'all saying over here? Just to heat treat. No, keep it right there, Arlen. It's in a. You gotta keep it where it's at. Okay, that blower. Backhand. 11. He was 12. You better believe it. Heat treating and forging. That was over a couple hundred pounds. Yeah. So now, if I wanted to cheat right now, I could take the steel, neck it down for the bolster, and then forge the blade out with the power hammer. But I want y'all to see me actually forge this with just hammer and anvil. So what we got to do is I've got to crush that section that's going to go from the bolster down into the blade. So we did this section right here already. Now we're working on pushing it out like this, creating this little round up, so that this stays the same width. We're going to have this slightly round. Our goal is to get this round where it needs to be, and then we're going to start forging with a different cross peen, with a cross peen instead of a straight peen like I'm using, and we're going to draw out height. So we get height out of the blade. I remember, yeah. It would be sweaty work. So we just keep pulling it down. We want to get it to about, I'm going to say about 3/8 of an inch. Go to about 3/8 of an inch thick, and then we will start drawing out height. Because whenever I'm drawing out the height, I'm going to make it slightly thinner. And then whenever I go in and I start cleaning up the profile and working with that, I'll thin that section down even more. So it'll be, you want to leave it a little bit thick now so that we have material to move later when we're adjusting. Whew. If y'all didn't know, saying whoo makes you about 5 degrees cooler. So you gotta say it often. What kind of metal do I use? Well, this is Damascus. Latest forge, I'm mostly done. It goes in the forge again to be heated. Quenched, hardened, yep. Oven for temper, correct. Is there a certain grade like 4140, 4150, or just still? So for this Damascus, we're using 1084 and 15N20 is this particular billet that this was made out of. So 1084 turns dark whenever you etch it. 15N20 stays silver. That's what gives you that pattern. So I'm good right there. I don't need to worry about straightening anything up really right now. I'll do all of that in the final. Right now, I want to go ahead, forge in a point while it's like this, and then we'll flatten it out. Oh, got sweat in my eye socket. Do I know what I'm doing? Nope. I just out here with all these tools because of no reason particularly. If you get this deep into this, to where you have a power hammer, 4 anvils, and 2 shops dedicated to the process, and you don't at least kind of sort of know what you're doing, be rough. Customer wants something close tolerance. I do use machining, so here, back up, Arlen. But I'll show y'all something. Ooh. So to give you an idea of how close I can actually forge to finish, a grinder has not touched this at all. This is only hammer and anvil. So the whole handle profile, the blade, the tapers, the distal to the end, the taper to the front, the thickness of the blade, how it's centered. Everything's all hammered. Bevels, everything. That is, not a single machine has touched this. That is just hammer and anvil. And it is the exact hand size for your hand. Everything. So, when it comes to how close I get to forge to finish, that's what you're looking at. I don't, if I don't have to grind anything, I don't want to. But I'll typically forge to within 1/16 of an inch of the final product. And on some of my stuff, I'll forge it to where even after you grind it, you'll still see texture. But not hammer marks, just the texture is the thickness of the forge scale. So now I'm going to go through and I'm going to forge in the tip. I'm going to use the 2 Basterds rounding hammer to do this. And I'm going to get after it on this. Okay, now over to the horn. Go back in the forge. Ooh, before I put it back in the forge, you see the C's? That's the layers right there. It's gonna look really cool whenever I grind that back. But right now we're gonna forge in a point. Get it back hot again. Remember, you don't want to forge Damascus cold. What am I forging? An integral bolster knife from Damascus. Not Damascus the place, but Damascus the steel type. This is started off as a 1 inch by 1 inch by like 2.5, almost 3 inch. This crushed C's is what we call it, Damascus. So if you were going to make feather Damascus, you would do crushed C's, and then you would take that, turn it into crushed W's, and then you take that and split it lengthwise, clean it up, forge it back together, you get feather Damascus. So this is the type of steel that you would use before that. Pattern welded steel, yep. You make chains if a customer asks for chains. I can make chains, but I really don't choose to. I can make anything blacksmithing project-wise. So I can make chains, I can do fancy chains, I can do non-fancy chains. The hardware to hold chains on. So the reason why I'm on the horn while I'm doing this is because it'll keep me from creating fish lips. Keep going, bringing that down. Put it back in the forge. Even though it looks like it still has plenty of heat, we don't want to screw up our Damascus because we decided to forge it too cold. Huh? Yeah, this is thick. I don't know if y'all have ever had to forge a 1-inch square down, but it takes a lot. It takes a whole lot. You know, typically, again, if I was doing something like this and not being a demonstration, I'd have just used the power hammer and stepped it down. But the deal is, I've got a power hammer. Y'all might not, or most likely don't have a power hammer, but y'all can get a hammer and an anvil or an anvil-shaped object or piece of steel and do what I'm doing. You do it with enough practice, you'll be able to do it. But if I fall back on the power hammer as a crutch and y'all don't have that, it makes it a lot harder for y'all to learn. Point. Point. Jeez. Can you make a katana sword? Yeah, I can. I've actually got a couple of swords on the wall that I'm working on right now. Plus I've got a huge chunk of cable Damascus right here that has cable from the Golden Gate Bridge in it. This is going to be turned into a sword. The guy who made my power hammer, he actually made that billet and sent me a chunk of it. Whew, Steve Jennings. If I had anybody that would be considered an apprentice, that's him. I talked to him most out of all the people who learned from me. So now that we have that point forged, what I want to go ahead and do is step down that bulky part that's in between the integral bolster and that point and just crush it down just a little bit, and then we'll start focusing on getting height and shifting material and doing all of that. Can I have that other water? Other water? Thank you, babe. These wraps were amazing, Nisha. Get you a wife that makes you food. I do a lot of the food making, but when I'm doing stuff like this, she's the one that takes care of me. I'm giving you credit. Take the credit. My wife's too honest. Okay, so now I'm going to take and flatten out that big fat chunk right there. I didn't miss a single time. Not one hit the anvil. Trust me. You'll know if I hit the anvil. This particular anvil has about 95% rebound. And whenever you hit it, it goes PANG! And my hammer shoots up almost out of my hand. How hard I was just hitting it right there. This, that sounds way louder than if I'm hitting it on the steel. If you hear me make that noise, that means I missed. Especially if I'm swinging from up here and coming down. That is a way different noise than me hitting the steel. You'll know if I hit the anvil versus the steel. Whew. So whenever I'm doing the Dragon Forge experience at the Texas Renaissance Festival, we'll be forging like this for 10 hours. Saturday, 10 hours Sunday. Forging back to back to back to back to back to back for 10 hours. Like 4 to 6 railroad spike knives or horseshoe knives every 45 minutes. It's between 4 and 6 of them on a 45-minute rotation for 10 hours straight. So I've done a lot of forging, a whole lot of forging. We'll keep going. So I'm gonna heat it up, forge it back out one more time. Yeah, I'm still in Wichita Falls. We want to get it down to that thickness all the way through, and then I'll start moving it. Good old Wichita Falls, Texas. One of those towns that has no reason to be as windy as it is. wear glasses. Oh, yeah, no, so I have the buoy route. So I do buoy, Delcona, Alvord, Chico, and Henrietta. That's my route for Pepsi. And for all you people who call Bowie knives, it's not a Bowie, it's a buoy. Just like the city in Texas that's called Bowie is the home of the largest buoy in the world. It's huge, it's like a 15-foot long buoy. They use like a tree to make the scales on that thing. Like a legit full-size tree. But it's a Bowie knife. Not a Bowie. It's not a singer. Yeah, I'm good with that. So now, I need to turn that into an actual knife shape. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a transition from the bolster down into what's going to be the heel of the knife. So I've got to create this transition where the bolster sits in this kind of ricasso section. I got to get the blade to come down so that your finger doesn't go up over the blade. So I got to get this drop. Whew. Like I said, for each, I get 5 degrees cooler. Then of course my wonderful daughter is keeping all the fan wind inside that shop because it's hitting her in the back and not coming in here. I bet you feel good though. No, you don't? Because you're getting all of my cool air.
Fan's hot.
The fan's hot? Oh, trust me, it feels great whenever I actually get it. See, look. Leave it where it's at. See, that feels fantastic. You're using all my fan air. All right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to hang the blade off the edge of the anvil. So if this was the anvil, I'm going to hang what's going to be the cutting edge off the edge of the anvil, and I'm going to forge half on and half off right here on the spine, and it's going to push this material down and create that initial step down. You want this section that's going to be your blade to be off the anvil so that it can push past the anvil. Once we do that, then we can use the cross peen and we can draw that section out. Use a cross peen, you can use a ball peen, you can use all kinds of different things to do this step. I'm going to start with a cross peen and go from there. That swimming pool is going to be so nice when I'm done with this. That little bitty old notch right there, that's going to be the beginning of our heel. All right. One second. I had to go and dunk my arms in the water. Let's put the mic back on. There we go. I went and dunked my arms in the water to cool them off a little bit. Now, if you ever get your hands wet while you're doing this, make sure you dry them back off. Do not forge with wet hands or sweaty hands. You will absolutely destroy them. You will get tons of blisters. There you go. Yeah. So before you, if you get your hands wet or something like that, just make sure you dry them off. Damp hands will absolutely screw you up. You want nice dry hands, just like if you were a gymnast or something like that. You're doing like, you know, beams and stuff, or whatever those bars are. You want dry hands. Use the chalk. Switch hammers. I'm going to go back in with the straight peen for a second and just work on that bolster just a little bit. And because I'm forging at an angle, it's going to drop that heel down a little bit by default. Almost as if I was forging bevels. So just drop it down just a hair more. Now I can go through with the cross peen. Do what? Hair more. Hair more. Just a hair. Yep, just one hair. Maybe about 25 hairs. Getting a workout today? Yeah, definitely a workout. Forging an integral bolster knife by hand is one of the, next to forging Damascus by hand, forging an integral bolster knife is probably the most work you'll do as a bladesmith, because you got to forge such a huge chunk of steel down. And you got to remember, whenever you're doing this, a lot of the time, if you're making a knife, you're starting with bar stock. You're starting with a piece of steel that is already in bar form. You're starting with that. So you already have a thickness set up. It's already got a thickness there. When you're doing an integral bolster knife, all of the thicknesses are created by you. So the blade thickness, the geometry, all the measurements are all what you do to it. If you're like, well, I want it to be 3/16 of an inch. Well, you got to forge a 1 inch wide thing down to 3/16 of an inch. It's a lot of work. It's the reason why people tend to use presses to do this. Straight or cross peen hammer. The other hammer I was using was the 2 Basterds straight peen. That was like perfectly built for doing integral bolsters. I'll straighten this out just a hair. Okay. We're going to get height now. So what we're doing is now we're going to get that height by forging across this way and pull that down. And then we'll go back, correct it, forge it again, correct it, forge it again, correct it. And you got to remember, as I'm forging the height, what's going to happen is the steel's going to grow both towards the spine and towards the blade, or the cutting edge. So what ends up happening is while we're forging, we got our little tang, our bolster. What we're going to end up doing is, because we're forging this way, we're going to end up with a bump. Now this is exaggeration. Kind of like that. So we're going to be pulling this down, but we're also moving this material up. What's going to happen is, whenever I'm done getting my height, I'm going to take a hammer there, and this height is going to push down to here, and it's going to create a bigger step down. Thank you. So I don't tend to correct anything as I'm going, because I want all that material there later. A lot of this is preforms. We're focusing on just getting the material to its spots so that we can then correct it and turn it into a Brady knife. So it's one of those things where you just got to do the process, do the process, do the process. How the pattern is going to look. I think it's going to be cool. Saved a lot of hammering? No, that's for sure. Point it back down. It's so that it doesn't hit the mic and get a bunch of fan noise. Integral, however you want to say it. So keep getting this height. ball peen. Keep bringing that down. And remember, like I said, I don't tend to correct anything that's happening to the profile. That'll all be done at one point. What's up?
What do you think? How much longer do you think it'll be?
About another 30 minutes. Now, forging an integral bolster from this size of steel in 2 hours. Because you got to remember, we didn't start forging until about the 25 minute mark. Because of how long it took to heat up. But again, we're just moving everything around. How should I manage cracks in my blades as I'm forging it? So, happen. So cracks, sometimes those were already in the steel before you started forging, and they are not easy to forge weld back. A D-lam, you could do that sometimes, but cracks are a whole different story. So the reason why cracks are harder is because cracks tend to happen this way. They happen like this. D-lams are this way. So you can heat it up, some flux in there, forge that back in. Cracks, not so much. Let me get some of this AC you got here. Oh. So when it comes to doing cracks, well, that's an awesome term. When it comes to trying to fix cracks, a lot of the times what you got to do is weld them or figure out a way to upset the steel, which is kind of really hard because you got to upset it lengthwise. So from tip to butt, and that's not easy. If you are going from side to side, it's a lot easier, put a lot of pressure behind it. It's not going to try and taco on you, but yeah, cracks are a little hard. If I had a knife develop cracks, I would just scrap that piece and move on to another piece of steel. Whew. Getting a little bit of that fan on my back. Yeah, it is. Never underestimate a good ball peen hammer. See how much of a heel we have now? That's going to be where your finger sits. This is your cutting edge. You can see we've forged it down thinner, almost like we created bevels. Again, we're not looking for a super pretty thing at this point. That will come in time. So now what we want to do, now that I have that section isolated pretty well, I want to take and get a decent amount of length and then get some height. And so right now, we have kind of like a clip point buoy profile. I don't know if that's the profile I'm gonna end up going with, but for right now, that's where we're at. So what we gotta do is we gotta go ahead and thin out that material so that we can then forge in the bevels. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to one of my really big hammers, and I'm gonna go ahead and just step the rest of the blade down to actually hit that length or that width that I need. That'll give me some length, and then as we forge in the bevels, we'll get a little extra height. And I think we'll be good. So we're gonna be using the old Fire Creek Forge 5-pound rounding hammer. A big old beast of a Thor's hammer. What's up, Matt? How you doing? Got the wife in here getting some clips. Where'd you put that little piece of paper towel? So I'm back in front of the fan. It just gets to a point to where this is so hot in here that you have to cool down a little bit, and it is just Arlen, you gotta step back. But yeah, you gotta cool down however you can, because you doing this by hand is just, it's so much work and it's so hot in here. And I haven't forged in about a week and a half, so it's something else. Whew. I think that was another 5 degrees with that. Whew. Okay, back at it. I found the paper towel that you gave me. How hot do you think it is in here right now? So that's where we're at right now. Now we get to go through and correct that profile. And then we'll forge the bevels. I've already kind of worked the bevels in a little bit during this process, but we'll do more as we go. But what I want to do now is I want to kind of get the preform a little bit. Move that back to center. I want to kind of get the preform set up so that whenever I forge the bevels, it makes the blade profile that I want to. Preforms are very important when it comes to forging knives, because whenever you hit a piece of steel, it's going to do something. It's going to move somewhere. If you don't have the preform set up, it's going to banana the way it shouldn't banana, or it's going to taco, or it's going to make some other food group. You don't want that. It's all food groups.
What?
It's either banana, it's going to taco, it's going to tostada, turn into a bowl.
Wait, what about taquito?
It could turn into a taquito. You could do all of those things. Can you get me one of those other drinks, Arlen? Thank you, babe. Whew. Well, I'm happy that y'all are toughing it out with me, that y'all are toughing this heat out with me. I know it's really hot out here, and y'all are in your probably nice AC watching me sweat my butt off. Oh. And it's probably going to feel like an ice cube. Like compared to how hot I've been.
And then when we jump in the pool, it's going to feel like
Okay, let's switch to the two Basterds rounding hammer and clean up this profile. So our blade profile is looking a little bit better. Of course, we still got to adjust things like that bolster. But after I forge the bevels and then I correct the spine, it's going to move that bolster down through the power of magic. So whenever you forge in bevels, it stretches the edge out and moves the steel around. Whenever I leave that extra thickness in the spine and I go to forge in the distal taper from, so how this has a taper from here to the tip, when I forge in that distal, what it's going to do is it's going to stretch this material and kick this down. Excuse me, Arlen. So a lot of this, like I said, is all about preforms and getting the steel moved to where it needs to go so that you can then finish the profile using specific hammers, specific forging techniques. Because as you remember, we started as just a square / rectangle piece of steel, and now we have a tang, a bolster, a blade profile, all of that through the forging process and using hammers. I don't know how many of y'all have actually seen somebody do this, but if you haven't, now you have. It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of thinking through the types of hammers that you're using. You know, using cross pins and straight pins and rounding hammers, using the right type of those hammers. All of that comes into play whenever you are doing this. Whenever I go out of view, I'm sitting in front of the fan and cooling off. So a lot of this is thinking through getting your preforms to where it needs to go so you can finish it. What the other food group was. Taquito.
Taquita.
Just put in a fence post and concrete. That's what I'm talking about. Putting in work. We're going to drop the point down a little bit. So we've dropped the point down, so now whenever I forge in the bevels, we'll bring that up and it'll have a natural shape to it. So I'm going to forge in bevels slightly different than maybe some of y'all have seen. So I'm going to forge in the bevels using a straight peen hammer. Instead of using like a rounding hammer or the flat side or the round side of a rounding hammer. What I want to do is I want the steel to go two directions. Not 4, not 3, 2. I want to get length and I want to get bevels. So as I'm forging this, I'm going to be putting peaks and valleys and moving that material one direction. If I use the round side of a rounding hammer to do this, it presses in and moves the steel in 360 degrees. So you get length, height, width, all of that. I want it to go length and bevel. That's it. That's all I want it to do to it. Length and bevel. Fix that tang just a little bit. So you can see the lines that I'm putting in here, they're all this way. So we're going to get a taper and we're going to get length out of that. Now I think what profile I'm going to go with on this is like a drop point hunter. Just because I think it's going to look cool. I've done a bunch of chef's knives recently, and I really don't want to do another chef knife. So I'm going to focus more on like a drop point hunter for this. I think it'll look cool. Plus I could put a really cool contoured handle on it. Huh?
I can make an armpits or something.
Are y'all as hot as I am right now? Is that what's? Do y'all feel this? Whew. Get it hot, hit it hard. All right, let's keep going. We're just gonna keep on going. Keep bringing it down. Once I get to a certain point, I'll be able to take and use my rounding hammer to finish out the bevels, clean everything up a little bit, and then I'll be able to planish from there. So the whole point behind what I'm doing right now is, again, I'm focusing on length and compressing the steel down a little bit to work in some bevels. Well, I'm happy y'all are here. I really appreciate people watching me do stuff like this. It's a cool thing to watch. You know, whenever you're just trying to watch a little bit of streaming or something like that, to watch me do this versus somebody else, I guess, do something that's not as, you know, just, I guess you could say useful. I want to give y'all an idea of where we started, okay? Same exact size piece of steel. This whole knife came from a piece like this. I cut this in half. That's how much steel manipulation we've done during this. That's how much we've moved. This is a point where you get stuck. Well, hopefully this will help you with that. Whew. Get this bottle back on me again. Y'all don't go anywhere. I'm just getting in front of the fan for a second with a cold bottle of water. So, like I keep saying, a lot of this comes into play with preforms and getting everything to the right point so that you can start making it look cool and look like a knife. If you don't do all those initial steps, you won't be able to make what I'm making right now. It's just almost impossible to get everything to where it needs to go to get everything in the right spots. You gotta be able to practice it. You gotta be able to take your time and really mess with this. So what I'm gonna do now is let's switch to, we'll go to the dog head. I'll kind of clean everything up a little bit and then we'll go from there. So I still got to clean up that bolster and line everything up a little bit. Back in. Well, there just went my back brick. Gonna have to use this brick right here on there. Got to be careful with that. Once you get to a certain size. But gotta put this on here before it melts all my random plastic stuff on that wall. Let's toss another one of these on here. Yoink. There we go. I poked the thing a little bit too far and the back brick fell off. This would be more of like a camp knife, survival knife. Okay, so I'm switching hammers. I've been using a dog head on that last one. I'm going to be using what is called a turning hammer. This is a Farrier's hammer. It's a Heller turning hammer. Yeah, I had to be mindful so that I didn't melt all the stuff off that wall. Reason why I'm going to use the turning hammer is I want to fine tune the area in that bolster. Work down this spine. Get the last little bit of height that I want. Now what I've got to do is I've got to go in here and recenter this section. You can see we have a distal taper that goes to the tip now. Not worried about it being super straight. I need to correct that bolster area. I don't know how many of these bricks I'm going to knock off of here. Evidently all of them. Shit. I'm like melting all the plastic, everything. Yes, I'm knocking all the bricks off. That's all there is to it. There. All the bricks. Hello to everybody who's just said hi. But I'm thinking about it. The reason why I'm knocking the bricks off is because of where I'm trying to get the heat at. So I need to grab it from the blade side. Because we're good on the blade side for right now. So I need to grab it from that side so that I can go ahead and continue working it. We'll use the big tongs. So this way I can correct the bolster and get everything good where it needs to be. Hey, what's up, Mule? Integral bolster knife out of the mirrored side of this Damascus. It's a crushed C's. So crushed C's, I forged from this chunk to where we're at right now. Yeah. That's good. We actually got a really big knife out of this too. Integral Hunter, yeah. Like, the size of knife that we got out of that chunk of steel is crazy. Like, really good sized knife. Okay, now we're going to work in this integral bolster. Now, just from that little bit of work, you can see that I brought that integral bolster down. How's the harpoon knife coming? Well, I got everything picked out for it, and started messing with it. I've just been trying to wrap up all of the family stuff and the holidays and work. So the 4th of July lead up that week is the busiest week for soda sales of the year. So I was at work all week. I didn't get to mess with anything. But I'm finally done with all that. So I'm going to adjust that bolster just a little bit more and get everything centered, get that bolster dropped down just a hair more. That profile should look really nice.
One hair?
Huh?
One hair?
3 hairs. 3 really thick hairs.
Nice.
I'm excited about doing both those. So if y'all don't know, Mule and I had a knife that I did based on one of his designs, and he sent me one of his knives. I'm gonna send him the knife that I designed based on his. I'm sending him that. I do prefer Pepsi product over Coke, depending on what I'm eating, but yeah, we're primarily Pepsi. But we also do a lot of Dr. Pepper. But that works out for me because in my area, we're the distributor for Dr. Pepper. So we do Pepsi and Dr. Pepper. Wrong tongs. There you go, just a hair more on that. Can't stand Coke. If I have nothing else to drink, I prefer. Yeah, I agree. We do either, but you know, for product loyalty, we do Pepsi. And my kids like Pepsi.
Yep.
Absolutely do. What's up?
Red. So, this is what I want to see. Red, white, and blue.
Red, white, and blue.
Pretty good looking knife.
Thank you. Did it go down the wrong tube? So yeah. Right now it's just fine tuning it. Getting everything to center. Still got to straighten up that tang. So what I'm gonna do now. What's up? How y'all doing? So I'm gonna heat it up, straighten up that tang. Whew. I think this is going to be good. I'm so ready for this pool.
Actually, what?
What forge do you have? So these are both forges that I made. So it's a smaller forge, one burner, and then the two burner version of it. But they're my design that I built. Based on other people's designs, stuff that I like from theirs and my own. Quintus, my website is almost ready to go up. Just gotta. There we go. Can you get the welding heat? Absolutely. Get well past welding heat. Well past it. Now, of course, because I'm going to be doing some of this through stock removal, I don't really have to worry too much about certain things, but I still want it to be nice and straight. So I'm going to go ahead and planish it. I'm cool with the profile though. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to grab the planishing hammer. Man, I've used so many hammers during this. But I'm going to go ahead and grab my little auto body hammer and we're going to planish it. And just make sure that everything's nice and straight. It's centered within the bolster really well. Now again, because this is a Damascus knife, you're asking about the forges. Oh yeah. Love the new mic. I'm happy that it's been helpful. This is actually a subscriber. The guy who hooked me up with that big ingot for the Woot steel, he sent me this and was like, hey, I'm gonna help you level up your live stream. Try this out. So he sent me that. But he also, I got this from him. I'm gonna be forging that into a big bar of steel. That is a very big Woot's ingot right there. I've got some videos on how I made the forges. The small forge I actually made for my nephew. And I've been using it, trying it out, but he's actually taking this home at the end of July. And I'm gonna be making another one of them, and I'll film that process. What happened if you left a forge finish on the Damascus knife? The pattern does show, not as well. So like, you can see the pattern in this section, but not near as much as the other section that's been ground. Same thing over here. Like you can see it in the forged texture versus where it's ground. If he has a video. Yeah, and I do brute to forge Damascus knives too. Like I've got a few of them in the my box that I take to my shows and all that. It's just for an integral bolster, in order to see all those cool layers funnel their way down into the blade. It's nice whenever you grind it and clean it all up, because then you can actually see the layers transition into the blade. So you can see that I forged it. I know with the brute to forge, you'd be like, oh, well, it's forged. But you can see that I forged those bands, those waves, and those layers, how they transition down into the blade and all of that. So it proves that I didn't just cut it out of a billet and use a grinder to do everything. Don't really have to do much to this. And what I'll typically do on these is once I clean up the profile on the 2x72, I'll go through and I'll put it back in the forge and I'll even work on it some more. But as of right now, we are nice and straight. Our bolster, everything's all centered. We got plenty of tang there. I'm gonna end up grinding it the rest of the way. Clean that up, but you can see how straight the blade is. It's even in the bolster, in the tang. And to give y'all again another idea of where we started, that's the end of the tang. That's how much of a knife we've made out of this piece of steel. That's what we started with. That's what we ended with. Because remember, I cut this bar in half. It was literally half of this bar made this whole entire blade. That is an absolute ton of forging. So now, I'll put it back in the forge. Heat it up, let it anneal. So, yeah, the Damascus won't look as good. And here's the reason why. So, whenever you leave the forged texture on there, that's gonna have a layer of forge scale. It's gonna have a layer of decarb, and whenever you have that, that muddies the pattern. So whenever you grind it and you clean everything off, you get a real crisp pattern. Whenever you leave that layer, that forged layer, it leaves that decarb in there, and that doesn't etch like the rest of the Damascus. So you get this like cloudy area in the forged section, or the brute to forge section. You get a cloudy etch there, and then a super crisp etch wherever you ground it. But like I said, I've got blades that I've done that are etched and forged. Turn that off. Give me a second and I'll actually grab one real quick. Because the only people that are left are the people that would actually probably like seeing this. So, 1 second, let me grab it out of the show box. Oh, I love you too. Okay, here we go. So this one is a beautiful knife. This is a piece of fossil Damascus. So all this section up here is all brute to forge. And then that's the etch. So you can still see the texture all through up here. And that texture goes all the way down to the end because that was forged to finish. So barely any grinding was done. Just got that texture all the way down. But you can see the difference between how crisp this is versus that. Because this is the same pattern as what's up here in this section. That's one of my chefs. That's a boinia for the handle. Distal taper on the tang. Nice thin blade. Fossil Damascus, chef. You like the finish, etch, the force. Yeah, and it worked out pretty decent, but it doesn't always work out like that.
Can we make a whirlpool?
Can you make a what? A whirlpool?
Yeah, when we get in the pool.
Of course. All right, guys, gals, if there are any gals in here, other than my wonderful daughter, I think we did good. Fossil Damascus with a fossil handle, that would be really cool. Is it working? Cut something, example, beard or something. That knife is absolutely insanely sharp. And no, I'm not going to cut my sweaty beard with that high carbon knife. But yeah, it is that's a very sharp knife. But you know, we're 2.5 hours into this live stream. We forged a integral bolster hunting / camp knife out of a freaking bar like this. We did a huge knife out of something that small. Really happy about that. What I'll do is, once it cools down, I'll clean it up. I'll grind it, clean it, do all that stuff. And if I get a chance tonight or tomorrow night, I will show y'all. I'll post a picture on my Instagram and on YouTube and show you what it looks like. Kind of cleaned up. So it won't be like fully ground or anything like that, but you'll at least get to see what the final profile is going to look like. So yeah. Thank y'all for hanging out, being a part of this. I really appreciate y'all. I'm going to go jump in the pool, cool down. Love y'all. I will see y'all next weekend for another live stream. I don't know what we're going to make, but we're going to make something. And I'll send you some pictures of where we're at during this week on the knives that I'm doing for us. Cool. I'm going to enjoy the whirlpool. Y'all have an amazing week. I'll catch y'all next Saturday, and we'll go from there. See y'all.